Hello everyone, my name is AJ, and I haven't come up with a good intro yet. In today's video, I'll be redesigning Alistair for my AU, the bed and breakfast for former baddies. Quick disclaimer, I'm not trying to fix the show, this is for an alternate universe! It's just a silly little thought experiment, so please be nice to me, I'm sensitive. Alistair's character design is fairly controversial. It seems like people either love it or completely hate it. I haven't seen anyone say anything about his writing though. It seems like out of all of the characters in the show, everyone can agree that Alastor is probably the most entertaining. The biggest points of contention are his colors and his hair. Now, I do actually like his design. It's very rule of cool, but I don't mind that. There's something about a character not fully making sense that's a very guilty pleasure of mine. I even like his dumb haircut. It makes no sense and frequently defines gravity, but who the heck cares about physics anyway? My intense love for this character did lead to a lot of fear and anxiety about designing him. I really wanted to make sure that I did him justice, and frankly, my first few sketches were awful. Usually when I'm designing a character for the first time, I put them in a default pose facing the front so that I don't have to worry about the pose or perspective or anything dumb like that. But I just couldn't get it to work. My first two sketches were so incredibly bad that my unmedicated anxiety nearly made me spontaneously combust. So I had to try something else. For my third sketch, I put him in a 3/4 angle with his face at a perfect side view so I don't have to worry about drawing the other eye. Then it was like he was just ejected from my body. Even still, it was really hard for me to get the front view right even after designing him the other way. I don't know why, I was just really off my game when I was designing him. Alastor was first created by high school era Vivzipop for her series Zoophobia, which was a comic on her Tumblr. Alastor was supposed to be a cannibalistic red deer, but later he got converted into the Alastor we know today. So, a deer monster. You know what that sounds like? A Wendigoon. I did some light research on Wendigoons, and lo and behold, they were exactly what I was looking for. A monster with antlers that does cannibalism, and also tries to get other people to do cannibalism. So I took a lot of inspiration from that. I made Alastor's antlers bigger and modified the shape of his ears to look more like a deer's. I did make them a little too big, but I don't care. I'll do what I want. I also decided to move them down on his head so they came out behind his jaw. I think his actual ears look like they're kind of just stuck on there, so I thought connecting them to where human ear canals actually are would make them look a little more attached. I also changed his nose to be more deer-like, since so far I haven't given anyone human noses, and I want to stick with that. I gave him deer legs and hooves, because I can't help myself, and modified the suit a little. I tried to keep it pretty similar though, like specifically about the shape at the bottom where it flares out, although I did tone that back a little bit. For his microphone cane, I tried to make it look more like a 1920s style mic, since being from the 1920s is like his whole bit. I also made it adjustable, so maybe it could become like a halberd if he wanted. That might be too far, but still, adjustable stick. I also put a little radio speaker in his chest, so he has a little bit more visual connection to radio without his stick around. I also made a second sketch without his coat on so that I can display the tail. He deserves one. For the finishing touches, I made his face look like a skull. A lot of the art I found of Wendigoons depicts them as having a deer skull for a head. Then I messed around with colors until it looked right. I specifically decided to keep the yellow from his teeth that's in his original design as an element throughout, since his sin is gluttony, and the gluttony ring is yellow. In the show, Alastor also gets a demon form like Charlie and Lucifer do. He gets bigger horns, bigger in general really, and more joints in the neck and dial-shaped eyes. I love that they actually tried to push it, and I like it better than the other demon forms we've seen in the show. I just wish they had done something different with the hair, and I really wish that Alastor knew what leg day was. If you've seen my videos on Charlie and Lucifer, you guys already know what I'm like. I like to push the demon farms as far as I possibly can, and Alastor is no exception. I started by drawing a basic deer skull, but made the bottom jaw into pincers because I can. I was very inspired by the Nowhere King from Centaur World because look at him. Look at how cool he is. I wanted to go with something that channeled similar energy. I thought my first draft was looking a little too much like a dragon. Don't get me wrong, dragons are awesome, but I've already turned Charlie and Lucifer into serpent-like dragons and I want some variety. So I snipped off the parts that I wanted to keep, adjusted their placement, and tried again. I bulked up his chest, snatched that waist, and give him hips that do lie. I revoked his feet privileges to give him some extra ghosty energy, and also so it's easier to animate, and of course I had to keep that tail tiny. In the show, he often summons tentacles on his back, very Nightmare Sans coded. Although this is very cool and I like it a lot, it doesn't make a ton of sense. What did tentacles have to do with him being a Wendigoon? Or a radio? It doesn't match very much is my point. I didn't want to get rid of them, so I turned them into wispy spike blades running across his back. That's also why I made him so long, so we get the most amount of surface area for those blades to emerge from. I saw some people online criticizing the green color that goes along with his magic, and I understand that. There is no green on his design anywhere to hint towards it, but I don't mind this. I have a theory that this green color comes from whatever demon has his soul, so I decided to keep it. As much as I loved my demon design, I have to acknowledge that it didn't have enough radio inspiration to it in the first pass. But also, I didn't want to change anything. So to satisfy both of the wolves that were fighting in my tummy, I tried drawing him from a different angle so that you could see his chest radio. I really wanted to keep the hair swoops from his normal form, but I couldn't get them to not look dumb, so I just pulled them back into the rest of the fluff. Coming up with an idea for Alastor's backstory was a little difficult. In the show, Alastor is a very mysterious character. I had very few points of reference to start building off of, but eventually I came up with something. The Wendigoon is a Native American myth, so why not make Alastor Native American to give him some more ties to it? I'm gonna put a mild trigger warning here for US history. In the 1800s, conversion schools were established in the US with the intent of, quote, civilizing Native Americans. This consisted of forcefully stealing children from their parents, stripping them of their culture, and forcing white Christian morals on them. It was one of the most disgusting things that the US and, quote unquote, Christians ever did, and I don't think it gets acknowledged enough. The last of these schools wasn't shut down until 1978. Alastor is said to have died in 1933, which means if he were Native American during this time, the chances of him being forced into these schools would have been pretty high. It also gives him a really good motive to become a serial killer. There are usually only 3 reasons that serial killers form: lust, the thrill of the kill, and screwed up moral codes. Lust is the most common, but also the most straightforward and boring. Thrill and moral code are a lot more interesting and also a lot less upsetting because they aren't as common. It was at this point that I had my concept completely done, and I went to the wiki to check for extra information to inform the details of his motives and make sure I didn't miss anything. I wasn't expecting to find very much there, but to my surprise, there's like a whole fanfic in there. Basically, daddy issues, single mom, made deal with demon for power, started eating people, and then got shot in the woods. All of this information was surprising, but by far the most shocking to me was that he was half African American. And maybe I'm just dumb, but like, look at him. If you need to go to the wiki to find out a character is supposed to be black, you've messed up. Now, for all of my other redesigns, I've come up with the concept first, and then looked at the wiki to get trivia information that I can use to inform smaller details. So far that's worked, but By this point, I'd already finished the design, and I was pretty attached to my idea. I didn't want to have to throw out nearly 11 hours of work, just because VivziePop can't draw black people even remotely. Anyway, all of this rant to say, I'm not changing my idea. Anyway, no big deal. We're moving on. So here's my idea. Alistair was forced to attend a Native American conversion school as a kid. When he was a teenager, he made a deal with a demon to escape and find success as a radio host, a job he otherwise wouldn't have been able to get cause racism. We love 1920s America. We just love 1920s America. He wasted his entire adult life indulging in whatever whim came into his mind, including murder. After he took the first life, the rest came easy. It was like following a compulsion. My version of Alastor would specifically target white teachers, preachers, and nuns. When he's killing, it's not some random innocent in his eyes. He's killing the teachers that tortured him over and over and over again. Eating the bodies feels like fully taking back his power, the ultimate disrespect to the human body, reduced to the role of a prey animal. In 1933, he succumbed to I think it's pronounced Kuru. It's a version of Prion's disease that happens when you do a cannibalism. I know that in the original, Alastor was mistaken for an animal and shot, which is why he's a deer, but nah. The more I can make a person's sins directly responsible for their own downfall, the better. It is entirely Alastor's fault that he's in hell. He can't blame anyone else for that. At any point, he could have stopped killing, but he didn't. If he had made any effort to recover from what happened to him instead of taking it out on innocent people, he could have lived a long, happy life, but he didn't. Alastor has no desire to get into heaven at all. He hates it with everything he has and every angel that's up there. Alastor is a very spiteful person, and he refuses to ever even try to get into heaven, specifically to stick it to the teachers that tortured him in the name of getting him in. He wants them to fail in every sense of the word. Alastor's ultimate goal is to get his soul back. He doesn't want to be owned by anyone. Not the demon that took his soul, not God, not Lucifer, no one. The only way to ever fully belong to himself is to become the devil, and he'll step on anyone to make that happen. Not that that'll ever happen, probably. I don't know where the plot's going. Just like in my last two videos, I'm going to end this one with a pitch for the next episode of the Bed and Breakfast for Former Baddies. For a quick summary of the series so far, episode 1, Charlie and Vaggie met for the first time. They fixed up the house as best they could, and then they spent the rest of the episode trying to get literally anyone to stay there, which didn't go well. It ended with Angel Dust showing up on his own and deciding to stay there. In episode 2, Charlie and Vaggie got acquainted with Angel Dust, Charlie did an interview with Katie Killjoy that went really poorly, we meet Alastor for the first time, and Sir Pentious gets his booty kicked. If you want to hear about those episodes more in depth, go watch my other videos. I have put them in a playlist for your viewing convenience. I do need to make one quick correction to episode 1. I needed to set up in episode 1 that the exterminations are going to be happening twice as often as usual. I was planning on setting it up when Charlie first meets Adam, but since it's already episode 3, we kind of need to get this plot moving. So it'll work better to have it happen earlier. So yeah, correction to episode 1. The angelic clock just starts ticking faster without explanation. Heaven doesn't make an announcement or anything, they just implement it immediately and expect everyone else to adjust to that being the way that things are now. Are we good? Cool. Without further ado, here's my pitch for episode 3. We open up together on the full group together in the house hanging out for breakfast. We get officially introduced to Husker and Nifty and get a feel for the group dynamic here. In order to make this project actually work, they need to get Heaven behind it officially. They have a little brainstorming session on how they could get into contact with Heaven. Angel and Husker don't seem to care at all, Nifty's off in her own little world, Alastor's being himself, and Vaggie is very stressed. Alastor and Vaggie do not get along very well. This project is incredibly important to Vaggie and matters very little to Alastor, and they cannot get along about it. Charlie leaves the room to clear her head and has the idea to call her dad. Charlie comes back into the room a few minutes later and announces that her dad is letting her take a meeting with the leader of the Angelic Army. Alastor and Vaggie both want to come with her, but Charlie tells Vaggie to stay behind. She pulls her aside to confide that she doesn't trust any of these demons, and she needs Vaggie to stay behind and make sure nothing bad happens while she's gone. Maggie seems a little upset about this, but she doesn't say anything and just nods. They hug and Charlie leaves for her meeting. Alastor will teleport there later. Cue happy day in hell. Adam greets her in the entryway next to the front desk. Eva's there too, but she's a mostly silent character, so she's kinda just in the background. Adam's pretty friendly at first. They shake hands and then Alastor teleports in. Adam is visibly put on edge by Alastor, but also shakes his hand after Charlie introduces him. Adam says that he's only authorized to talk to Charlie and that Alastor will have to wait out in the hallway. While saying this, he casually burns his gloves and puts on new ones. I think it's gonna be... I'm gonna make it a rule from heaven that you're not allowed to, like, wear clothes that have been touched by sinners more than once. And Adam's a rule follower. He's word and spirit. So just burn it all immediately. Charlie apologizes to Alastor and he decides to just leave and go do something else. While leaving, he purposely brushes against Adam's cloak, so now he has to burn that too. Eva's a spare for him though. Adam and Charlie get into the elevator and go to the top floor where their meeting room is. Adam makes a remark along the lines of, "Let's get this over with." As the doors close, we cut to Alastor. Alastor is casually walking down the street when he runs into Zestial. They have the same conversation that they had in the original show, which is basically just a little bit of exposition about Alastor being gone for 7 years. The only change I'm going to make to that conversation is Zestial inviting him to the Overlord meeting he's going to, and Alastor accepting. Carmilla has called the meeting to talk about the new extermination schedule. Velvet shows up fashionably late, just like she does in the original episode. Carmilla continues with what she's saying and proposes a group effort to dig more underground shelters from the angels so that they don't lose as many sinners this year. Velvet interrupts her with her own idea to fight back against the angels and tosses the exorcist's head onto the table to prove that it's possible. She also mentions that Vox stayed behind this time specifically to get started on an angelic defense system. Velvet is a little taken off guard when the overlords don't immediately take her side of the argument. Some of them don't believe that the head is real, some people don't believe that they were actually killed by a demon, some people don't think war with heaven is smart even if it is possible to kill angels. I think this would be a good way to establish how different the V's are from the older overlords. They're a lot more rash and quicker to take risks. Cue respectless. After the meeting is over, Alastor spies on Carmilla just a little bit. He discovers something that the audience doesn't get to see, and then we cut back to Charlie. Adam and Charlie are discussing the shortened extermination time. Charlie asks if the extermination time has actually been halved or if the clock tower is just broken. Adam confirms that the time has been shortened due to a greater number of souls falling to hell in recent decades. Honestly, it was a long time coming. Charlie asks if heaven would accept a third alternative if there was one available. Adam is open to the idea at first. Cue Charlie's part of Hell is Forever. During her part, for people who are really paying attention to the animation, you'd be able to see Adam look ever so slightly to the side of Charlie and notice Lucifer in her shadow. It would be drawn as such a subtle, hard-to-see detail that I don't think most viewers would be able to tell what exactly Adam saw if they even pick up on Adam seeing anything at all. When Adam cuts her off, all of the music just stops. Adam thinks that Charlie's whole plan is a lie, and is frankly insulted that anyone would think that kind of obvious trickery would ever work on him. The music would come in slowly as his anger is ramping up and gives way to mocking apathy. This version of the song would probably be shorter than the original because Adam doesn't want to waste any more time on this obvious lie. The scene ends with Adam and Eve leaving without warning instead of kicking Charlie out. Alastor and Charlie arrive back at the house at around the same time. Alastor seems to be in a genuinely good mood. Charlie is obviously not. Vaggie greets her, all excited to hear about how it went. Charlie sits down on the couch with her head in her hands for a solid minute before she's ready to tell Vaggie what happened. Angel, who is currently drinking himself silly, is not at all surprised in the slightest and says as much. Vaggie glares at him, and he actually managed to struggle out an actual sorry this time, and goes back to burying himself in alcohol. Vaggie attempts to cheer Charlie up, but Charlie isn't ready to receive that right now. She excuses herself to her room. She passes her family's portrait in the hallway. She pauses at it, then goes to her room. Scene change! Velvet walks into Vox's room, the one with all the monitors and the big chair. He's busy overseeing his employees' experiments and stuff. Valentino's also there, but he's kind of just doing his own thing. Velvet complains to them about how the meeting went. Neither are really listening, so she mentions that Alastor was there to get Vox more engaged with her. This has the exact opposite effect that Velvet wanted. Vox is now flipping out about Alastor being back. He calms himself down, sort of, not really, by making a plan of action. He'll send a spy. Valentino mentions that between the two of them, there aren't many people left in their corner of pride that can't be tracked back to them. Who else is left? All three of them have the same idea at the same time. The episode ends with Sir Pentious showing up at the bed and breakfast, peacefully this time. Thank you everyone so much for watching. If you'd like to support me, I have links to my Patreon, Ko-fi, and Instagram where you can commission me and get other cool rewards. Subscribe if you want to. Please be nice to me in the comments. I am sensitive. And join me again next week in a super cool video where I take my new medication exactly as prescribed. Bye-bye!